Inga, the floor is yours.
Yes, thank you very much. And welcome to Digital Memory of the Nation, Security, Access and Technology. This online event is a part of the International Archives Week, now in 7th edition, which explores the global theme, Archives are accessible, archives for everyone. And my name is Inga Bolstad, and I will moderate this session today. I have been working as the General Director at the National Archives of Norway the past 10 years. And I am also the Vice President of Forum of National Archivists. I have been dedicated and passionate about leading the organization into a digital time ever since day one. The National Archives of Norway offers groundbreaking technology in the field of archives and is the largest data provider in Norway. With unprecedented opportunities to combine data with new technology, we set a new standard for how archives can be used and made accessible. Their innovative approach provides users with access to a wealth of information, opening up new ways to explore and utilize historical data. And this 90-minute session will feature 3 presentations that explore national strategies for safeguarding and democratizing access to digital records. First one is sustainability of digital records, ensuring long-term access and protection against cyber threats. This is presented by Dr. Hamad Al-Mutairi, who is the Director of the National Archives of the United Arab Emirates. And the second speaker is opening the digital vault, enhancing digital access at library and archives in Canada. This is presented by Leslie Weir, librarian and archivist of Canada. And the third one is preserving the nation's health memory, mass digitization and long-term access at the Norwegian Health Archives, presented by Bjørn Børresen in Norwegian Health Archives. And all the questions should be managed in the Q&A at the bottom of your screen. And apart from that, we also have a chat bot. But make your questions into the Q&A. And you speakers, you can add all the questions directly if you want in the Q&A. And after the presentations, then we will open the floor and dive into the questions. And after that, we close this webinar. So then we are ready for speaker number 1, sustainability of digital records, ensuring long-term access and protection against cyber threats. As I said, presented by Dr. Hamad Al-Mutairi, who is the Director of the National Archives of the United Arab Emirates. So the floor is yours.
Thank you so much, Inga, for the introduction. And it's really great to be part of this session, especially that this is the last day of the International Week of Archives. And I guess it's a very important topic and a great topic to discuss today, because it's important to find the right formula between access and security and how to also utilize the technology in general. So if you allow me to share my presentation. Can you just confirm if you can see the
Yes,
presentation?
I see your screen very well, Dr.
That's great. So thank you once again. Thank you, Fan. Thank you, ICA, for this opportunity to discuss this important topic today. As we are all aware that it's sometimes difficult to answer this question, what to provide, how to provide it, and especially when we are introducing, our content to the public, to researchers, by using also technology and digital platforms, and how to prevent also against the threats that are actually creating issues and challenges in our field and our industry. So today I will take you through the story about how we take care of our digital content and digital heritage. And I will take you also through some facts and information about what's happening around the world. And what are the importance of having strategy around having long-term preservation, and how to safeguard our content and prevent or sometimes maybe eliminate the issues and risks that around providing access to our content. And then we will discuss the way forward. So in brief, at the National Library and Archives of United Arab Emirates as an entity, it was established in 1968. And the aim of that entity was to capture everything related to the history of the Emirate. So it was just the history of the state. And this mandate actually expanded to cover the entire country in 2008. And from that, we made sure that we provide the required training, the required tools, policies, procedures for governments, for individuals, for all the stakeholders to make sure that we are playing a major role in preserving the history for the future. And of course, what we do in terms of processing the content and digitizing the content is to provide access to those collections and to make sure that this content is authentic and it's original according to the best practices. We are also committed to participate in the innovation, in the national collaborations, and international engagement as well. And of course, while dealing with content and while dealing with digital records, we are also facing different challenges. For example, how to manage the digital records. We need certain skills and competencies that will allow us to manage the new way of dealing with digital records and to make sure that it is prevented. And at the same time, we are also providing access to our stakeholders. One of the major issues also is to make sure that whatever we have and whatever considered as a national value records, we need to make sure that we have the right controls and procedures and technology and techniques to preserve it for long term. And to be able to do that, we need also to follow certain standards according to the best scientific way to preserve the history for the generations. In terms of facts and statistics around the world, because we are creating, if you can see the numbers here, I was a little bit surprised about the numbers. It was unexpected for me. So if you can see, for example, on a daily basis, we are creating more than 400 million terabytes of data. Do we need all of those data? Are those data are important in terms of national value and in terms of future, let's say, requirement and research? How to eliminate the overhead, as we call it in the technical realm. So how to differentiate between the important data and, let's say, the less important data, and how to classify those, and how to also eliminate this type of data, because it will create noise on the system and it will create noise in the future if we don't take care of this right now. Even the issue of the automatic or auto-generated data, especially that we are using now robotics, we are using different types of technologies, we are using Internet of Things, we are connecting everything to the internet, we are trying to make sure that it is also integrated. I mean, whatever we have is integrated with different systems. And also those auto-generated data is playing also an important role in our way that we are managing our data and how to preserve it for long term in general. We can see that even the data volume is also growing in terms also of issues related to cybersecurity and cyber threats. And we've seen that during COVID, for example, the number of attack and security issues increased by 400%. So this is also an indication that we need also to consider while planning and while we are designing our strategies to manage the data, especially when it comes to digital environments. If we talk about strategies, of course, we need to keep in mind that the strategy or the framework need to consider all elements, whether it's directly digital element or even sometimes it's indirectly, because there are different layers. We need to start sometimes by making sure that the data is protected even physically. So who got access to the data center, for example, and how to keep a log of what's happening physically and digitally. There are so many also issues that we need to consider while also constructing the framework. For example, migrating data, refreshing data, and how to make sure that we have the right format that will also help us in the upgrade of the systems that we have or any future expansion of the system. Data format also is another element that we need to consider, what type of format that we need to keep and what type and how it is also preserved for the future, especially that we are shifting and we are enhancing our systems and platforms. I believe metadata is becoming also a strategic key factor, especially in our new thinking while we are talking about digital heritage. The metadata will help us to identify the importance and the priority of the content that we are preserving. And it also will impact how we are deciding on the priority, especially when it comes to national value level content. And I believe that thinking about collaboration, partnerships between educational institutions or even the ICT sector will also enhance the strategies and the implementation of our projects. So things also to consider if we are talking about an operational level, we need to think about data encryption, incident response plan, and we need to make sure that it is tested. So it's not just on paper. Thinking about authentication and using different technologies and tools like detection systems and prevention systems. We need to keep regular audit, whether it's a systematic audit or even sometime we need to provide different way of auditing what's happening behind the scene, especially if we are using AI tools. We need to keep monitoring those technologies and how it's also enhancing by using machine learning and different tools and techniques. We need also to provide, of course, training. We need to think about tokenization. We need to make sure that we have also compliance. There are so many international standards that we need to adopt and to make sure that we are implementing something according to the best practices. The way forward, we need to think about this together, how to foster innovation and collaboration across different sectors. And as I mentioned earlier, educational sector, ICT sector, and maybe different sectors as well, that we need to think together how to make sure that we have integrated and aligned strategies. We need to adapt to new technologies and tools. We need to engage public in preserving the national records, because we need everyone to be part of this, because as we saw earlier in the facts and statistics, that the number of documents are really, and the data is generated by human, by users, by government, by different, stakeholders, and we need to play a role on that mission. And we need to think about sustainability of our records, how to preserve those records to the future according to the different practices and technologies that are available in the market. To conclude, I really thought of sharing this quote by Tim Berners-Lee. As he mentioned, data is a precious thing and will last longer than the system themselves. So we need to think about the data, not just the system. And if we focus on the data and how to preserve this data to the future generations, we will be able to decide and to even construct the strategies, policies, and implementing those according to the, as we said, the scientific way of digital preservation in this realm. And I would like to say also again, thank you. And we will keep connecting, and we will keep discussing those issues to be able to find the right solutions, and also to provide our experience and exchange our experience to benefit the knowledge society in general. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Dr. Hamad. What a very interesting presentation. And to all the audience, remember to post your comments or questions in the Q&A at the bottom of the screen. And as I said, the speakers will answer or give comments to your questions or remarks at the end of this session. So again, thank you, Dr. Hamad. And now I give the floor to the next speaker. And the session or the speaker will talk about opening the digital vault, enhancing digital access at library and archives in Canada. And this is presented by Leslie Weir, a librarian and archivist of Canada. So the floor is yours. Leslie, I'm looking forward to listen to you.
Thank you so much, Inga. Bonjour tout le monde. Oui. I'd like to begin by acknowledging that I am speaking to you from the unceded, unsurrendered territory of the Algonquin Anishinaabe people, and I have the privilege to live, work, and play on their traditional lands, which they have cared for in time immemorial. And at Libraries and Archives Canada, we actually hold the stories of the First Nations, Inuit, and Métis Nation from across the northern part of Turtle Island. Now, I too will share my screen. So, what a great time for us to be gathered together on this International Archives Week, especially with the theme that archives are accessible, archives for everyone. With the new digital services and artificial intelligence around every corner, how can archives remain relevant and make sure that our services keep up with our users and researchers' expectations? We need to reimagine how people can interact with our national institutions. So at Libraries and Archives Canada, we've established a vision, which was released in 2022 to take us forward to 2030. Our long-term vision is really looking at making sure that our collections are accessible to all, and that we are in fact a trusted source that's connected and enabling a digital access for all of the peoples of Canada and internationally, so that people can understand our history and can access all of our archival documents. We have begun by really putting people at the center of what we do, but of course, our collections are the heart of what we do. We have focused in on three key principles: openness, inclusivity, and, we hope, some digital leadership. So, in our strategic direction for the current period, 2024 through 2027, we are focusing on putting the user first. We want to be sure that we have access that is user-friendly to our collections, and we want to attract new audiences to be able to explore and use and share our collections. So we've been working hard in enhancing our capacity, building skill in terms of the digital, and looking at securing more advanced technologies to support that access. We are looking at the way we can transform how we work. So we're listening to our users and we're adapting our processes to make sure that they're evolving the way our users' expectations are evolving. So we do have a growing digital archive. We have both digital collections that we ingest that are digitally born from Canadian publishers, but especially from the federal government, where we play the role of the memory of the federal government of Canada. And of course, from private archives that fill out our collections to make sure that we really do represent the heritage of Canada. Our collections are growing quite radically in terms of those that are digital born, as well as the analog collections we have that we are digitizing. So currently we are over 17 petabytes, and this is growing by about 1,500 terabytes per year. And we have about 5 million files per year that are used by various clients. We also do things like harvesting our Canadian presence on the internet. So periodically, we do a harvest of all of the websites that are on the .ca domain, so that we can be sure that our collections actually are representing what is happening in the Canadian environment. So in terms of the way we function at Libraries and Archives Canada in the processing of our digital collections, everything we do supports digital access as the end goal. Acquisitions is handled by our collection sector. They work on the digitization, they work on the physical control, they take care of any questions about intellectual property, and of course create the descriptions for our collections to make sure that they are discoverable. Preservation is handled by our digital services sector. They work on the digital format analysis. They ensure that we have file and carrier migration. They oversee that we need to be sure that the integrity of our collections is maintained and work to verify the collections that we hold while working on both archiving and, where necessary, restoration of those collections. Our user experience and engagement sector provides access through the reference services, working with clients, collaboration for exhibits, look at data sharing, online access, but also showcasing our digital collections through programming and through events. We are trying to engage with our collections via technology. I'm just going to give you a couple of examples where we are trying to ensure that our collections, especially our digital collections, represent diversity of Canada's peoples, and especially the communities that are sometimes underrepresented in the Canadian vision of the country. So I'd like to highlight here two projects, one of which is supporting Montreal's Black Community Resource Center, where they are creating podcasts to be able to share their experience. And then we have Voices Revealed, where we talk about Porter Talk. And if we go back into the 19th and early 20th centuries, on our rail system that was very key in connecting a very large geographic country with a relatively small population. We're currently at 44 million people in one of the largest landmass countries of the world. The porters on our trains, it was one of the first careers for Black immigrants to Canada. And so we have a whole series focusing on revealing the stories of the porters in Canada, which complements Sorry, I am being asked to confirm that I am who I say I am. We love technology, and especially security. Good. It agrees that I'm Leslie. Yes, so those are just a couple of examples of initiatives that we're doing. We're also working very hard in Canada on reconciliation with Indigenous peoples. And we have two programs that we've been doing that are digital in nature, two of many actually, but I'm going to talk about two. The first one is called Listen, Hear Our Voices. And it is a program where we support Indigenous communities to digitize and preserve their language and cultural heritage materials. So we provide financial support to enable them to keep their archives in community, but have them digitally available for their community and for others as they deem appropriate. So we have funded 115 digitization and preservation projects from across Canada, which we have been doing since 2019. We are also doing a complementary program which is called We Are Here Sharing Stories. And this is where we digitize materials from our collections that are archival documents relating to First Nations, Inuit, and Métis Nation heritage, to be able to give them access in community to our collections. I would also like to showcase something that's not in my presentation PowerPoint, and that is that we've just created a creator in residence at Libraries and Archives Canada. And our first creator in residence is in fact a digital artist named Eric Chan, who is also known as Ipman. And he is exploring and learning about our collections. And then he is taking those collections and using them as inspiration to create digital art. And he has chosen during his 8-month practicum with us to focus in on the Chinese immigration to Canada and to a very dark period in our time when we had something called the Chinese Exclusion Act, where we had very limited immigration for Chinese people to come to Canada, and they had to pay something called a head tax. And so he is creating new content inspired by our collections, which is getting a great deal of attention from people across the country. He's in the middle of his residency, and we will be doing more programming with him. So I suggest you stay tuned. We, of course, have to look at innovation in terms of what we are doing. And we are looking at how we can enhance our services while empowering our users to be able to interact more directly with our collections. And we want to be sure that our people who are researching our collections can actually zero in and discover and focus on the areas of interest through their collections. We are working with artificial intelligence to create these opportunities where our staff are developing more time to look at strategic and creative tasks and streamlining our processes to be able to automate and accelerate our workflows. So some of the artificial intelligence experiences we're having at Libraries and Archives Canada include the use of transcribists and transcription tools that are involved in a number of pilot projects we are doing. We have the Index of Canadian Newspaper Transcriptions, which is allowing access to historical Canadian newspapers. And using artificial intelligence, we have improved the error rate of transcription from 11% down to 3%. We also used artificial intelligence to be able to transcribe our 1931 census that we released in June of 2023. It enabled us to transcribe over 10,300,000 records in just a few days, and to be able to build indexes on all data fields instead of just a few selected fields. We're also automating our access to information processes in terms of people who are trying to access government records. And we have a system we call ATIP Express that is an AI-driven management software that automates workflows and processes to facilitate access. We're very focused on cybersecurity, looking at how to ensure that our data remains secure and readily available for user access. And as everyone knows, that is a challenge in today's world. We're focusing on sovereignty, where we ensure that all of our preserved copies are stored within Canada. We are looking at redundancy to be sure that our data is stored with multiple copies, a minimum of 2. And we are looking at how we can protect our data using security agency partners, such as the security agencies in Canada that are using Government of Canada security classified protocols. We're also looking at segregation of data to ensure that we can physically transfer, process, preserve, and deliver the data with us in a secure sense. So an example of that is that we have separate carriers for high classification data, secret and top secret, over separate workstations and networks. And we are storing our highly classified materials on data tapes. So in closing, digital services and their access will only grow in importance, and with all of their opportunities and challenges. And we, I think, can work together as a global archival community to be guided by our users and make sure they remain at the heart of what we do, but make our collections accessible to one and all. Thank you very much. Merci beaucoup, Miigwech.
And thank you, Leslie. What a great presentation. And I want to remind all of you that it's still possible to ask questions in the Q&A. And now the time is ready for the third speaker. I want to welcome the last presenter today, and his name is Bjørn Børresen, Preserving the Nation's Health Memory, Mass Digitalization and Long-Term Access at the Norwegian Health Archives. And the Norwegian Health Archives are a part of the National Archives. So the floor is yours, Bjørn.
Thank you, Inga, and thank you for the opportunity to present a big initiative in Norway about the health archives.
Bjørn, my apologies, could I interrupt you? Is that, could you change the mode of your presentation? Because we are seeing your...
Was it wrong? Yeah. Let's see.
Perfect.
It's better now?
Yes,
it's right.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. I will talk about a big initiative in Norway about preserving the nation's health memory. It's about the patient records in hospitals all over Norway. Norway is a small country, 5.5 million inhabitants, and you'll find hospitals in big cities like London serving more patients than inhabitants in Norway. So we have many small hospitals. So we have archives all over the country. And this big project is about preserving and make access to those patient records. So I will tell you a story about that. And in all those hospitals, we have more than 150 kilometers of paper stacked patient records to be digitized. I looked at the map. You see the different distance between Brussels and Hague. That's approximately the distance of shelf meters with patient records in Norway that we have a plan to digitize and make available for researchers and relatives, next of kin, in Norway. We started out in 2019, and we are now up and running at a place called Tynset. That's a small village in the middle of Norway, in the heart of Norway. And this history starts about 20 years ago, where we had a hospital reform, where the central government took over the ownership of the hospitals, and we had a public inquiry investigating what should we do with all the patient records when they are kind of a part of the central government. And the inquiry pointed out the value of these patient records that is important for research, especially medical research. So the government made a decision to establish a health register in Norway, preserving, but also make it available as a health register in Norway. So this was a big project. The funding took some time, but in 2017 we had the budget, and the official opening was in 2019, where we could open the Norwegian Health Archive as a part of the National Archives of Norway. And the first research project using patient records, digitized patient records from us, was used in 2020. That was briefly the history and the background for this. The legislation says that we are receiving, securing, and make available patient records, and it's both the physical records, but also the electronically created records that we are preserving and make available. The register is for deceased people. That's kind of the archival part of this. So we have both an archive and a health register for research. Yes, so by now we have 1.7 million patient records, mostly physical records, but we are now also receiving electronic records. They're coming from 66 different hospitals, and they're covering more than 8 million diagnoses, which is part of our metadata in the registry. And the time span is from 1850 to 2020. Actually, our first born patient is born in 1777. So that's when the Napoleon started out in Europe. So we have a long time span. And actually now we have delivered 17,000 records to researchers for different types of research. We are around 190 terabytes of data, and we have 173 million digitized pages, which we also OCR read as a part of our registry. We have been working a lot about doing this mass digitization effectively and do it with processes that we could be able to enhance our registry and get as much data out to the researchers as fast as possible, because there's a great interest in this kind of data. In other research fields or in other health registers or data banks, it's more newer data. So we are kind of unique in that way that we have like 150 years covering the whole nation, and that's unique to for many researchers. So we have established processes for doing this effectively in a large scale. We have 24 workstations digitizing records, and we are digitizing around 30 million pages a year. Yes. We are working, our infrastructure, logistics, workstations, everything is set up for this mission. So we are focusing on continuous improvement. We are collaborating about these records, these archives, so we can get a high quality registry with many records as possible. And we have some years left. There are around 15 million records, physical records out there. And as you saw, we we have about 1.7 million now, so we have many years work ahead of us. But also the electronic records will be a part of our registry in the years to come. So we focus on doing this in mass scale, working very much as an industry or a production company, trying to make it as effective as possible, but also have the necessary data quality, especially when it comes to our metadata. Yes, when we come to the preservation part, we have systems and processes established according to the Hawaii standard. We have Archivist as a core preservation system. We have a local data center, but also storage other places in the National Archives of Norway. We have a strategy for migration. We are part of the health sector. So we, when it comes to security, we are part of the Health Such, the organization for data security in Norway. So we have a lot of processes, systems established for our purpose, and we have a part of our processes to OCR it, make it machine readable as best as we can, and store it according to the standard. But what I think is very interesting with our project is that we formally is a health registry. So when the researchers are applying for data from us, they are going to the healthdata.no website, where is the portal for different data sources. There you have now more than 120 data sources for medical research, and we are one of the national health registries in Norway. It's not that many, it's 16 of them in Norway. But this is quite unique because then we are kind of in the family of established data sources in within the medical research. This is the opening page where you can see the different data sources that we can connect to, and many researchers do want to have the story behind the data for certain patients. So we have delivered patient records to cancer research, to kidney diseases, interesting also about the dementia, because of the family tree is relevant in research about dementia, and also psychiatric research. We also have the psychiatric patient records from the specialized healthcare in Norway, and that's a unique base for establishing new data sets, setting together new data for research. But what is different in our context is that we have a large amount of unstructured data or unstructured text record information. And that's especially interesting when we have language technology and AI. So we are using AI to find specific information, specific data on special questions or themes that the researchers are interested in. That's interesting because the other data sources very often are structured, and that means that we have the variety, the information that is have more details about for example, the escalation of a disease, and we have from the whole patient treatment until death, and that's also quite unique. Yes, and then this unstructured data is quite unique in Europe, and now the EU is having a big initiative called the European Health Data Space that enables sharing data within the sector, within the medical research fields across Europe, not only on a national level. And I see that the interest internationally on this data source going back to 1850s is quite unique and could be more relevant for international research projects in the future to come. Yes, that was a brief story about preserving the health memory in Norway. So I will finish there with a picture from the opening in 2019 with me and Inga. So thank you.
What a beautiful picture, Bjørn. Thank you very much, Bjørn. This was very insightful. And now, as I said, as I mentioned in the beginning of the webinar, we can now go through the questions left in the Q&A. So let's dive into it. The first question is, do we think that enough interest and effort is put into how technology can help to make our collective memory accessible securely? Or is the current emphasis on how to secure our memory from threats posed by new technology trends? Maybe this is a question for you, Dr. Hamad.
Yeah, thank you for the question. I believe that the technology itself, it can be considered as enabler and a threat at the same time. Because using the technology, of course, because we cannot now work, especially in our field, without depending on the technology. We need to use it. We need to utilize the power of the technology to enhance and to speed the process of, ingesting, indexing, as we saw also in the presentation by Leslie, and how they use the technology to extract information and to describe the content. So this is something really important, and we need to adopt. But at the same time, there are also threats, because we are exposing our content, using those technologies to public through platforms. But we need to understand that there are risks, threats that will, of course, be as a tax of the accessibility that we are aiming to have. But we need to consider those risks. We need to have risk assessment before even providing access. We need to understand and study the risks and the impact of those, threats and risks. And we need to put the right control. There are different ways in protecting the content from the threats, but can we say that this will eliminate the attacks or will eliminate the cyber issues? No, because as long as we are, using the internet to provide access, there will be a risk. Our role is, as I said, we need to study, put the right controls in terms of processes, systematic or different layers in the systems to protect the data. They're using, national archives around the world, they're using different, strategies to deal with that. For example, because there are also different approach of deciding what to go to the internet or what to go to public. Is it by default that we provide access to everything? or it's the other way around. We block everything and then we provide access to certain, let's say, collections. This formula or this actually calculation needs to be studied by the organization based on the collection, based on the aim. And at the end, we need to use the technology to help us and to start thinking about how to prevent the technology to be used against the aim of the archival requirement.
Thank you, Dr. Hamad. And then we go to the next question. And the question is for you, Leslie. How do you plan to empower users? Do the users be eager to undergo to your program of empowerment? Leslie.
So, thank you, Inga. What I can say is that we had been relatively traditional in the way researchers and users would interact with us. So they would often need to have someone to mediate for them. They would need to come to our experts, our archivists, and they would ask questions because 95% of our collections are in fact analog. And we do not have item level metadata for everything in our collections. And we do hold the 5th largest heritage collections in the world. So what we have been doing is developing a number of tools while we're ingesting larger amounts of digital content and digitizing our collections so that people interacting with our collections, especially virtually or on site, can actually better control and manage their use of our collections. And this is not something where we need to bring people in and give them training. It's creating tools that are relatively intuitive, that support the people who want to interact with our collections in a way that they can control that and that they can interact with the collections, and that we're linking our different collections so that if they start in one collection and it raises questions, that they can move between the materials that we have. And I can use an example, which is if you look at when we digitized all of the records of the military from World War I, we now have all of, each of the veterans' records are available openly online, but we also have some of the military's documents about events that those veterans were involved in. And so if someone starts by looking up what happened in a certain battle, they're interested in knowing something about the soldiers that were involved. They're interested in being able to connect to different parts of our collection. And we're creating tools that will help them be able to do that. So it's not something where we say, hey, do you want to be empowered? It's much more about creating an environment that actually does empower them.
Thank you, Leslie, for the answer and the example. And we have another question. How the process of digitization, preservation, and sharing data for research purpose comply with General Data Protection Act? And I think this is for you in Norway, Bjørn.
Yes. The short answer is that our registry is for deceased people, and that the GDPA is for live persons. So in general, that kind of is not directly regulating our purpose, but there are some exceptions, of course. But that's the simple answer to that. We have national laws that is compliant with the GDPA, that is relevant for example, when we have information about relatives or health personnel and so on.
Thank you. It's very nice with easy answers. We also have another question for you, Bjørn. Maybe it's the same, but I read it. In Norway, how do you ensure compliance with personal data protection laws, since personal health records are sensitive?
Yeah, it's important to say that the access is regulated in the health legislation, and that the law about strict regulation about access, and it's pretty much the same as for a live person. So it's next of kin, close relatives that can apply for access, and researchers with permission, ethical permission from a board in Norway that can get access.
Thank you. And you have another question, Bjørn, and it starts with saying, thank you, Bjørn, for sharing about the experiences of the health archives. You touched on the need for technology to help make the unstructured data more searchable. But could you share a bit more on the consideration, the benefits or challenges of being on a federated platform like Helsedata, health data, to facilitate access to the health archives?
The health data, is more like a portal for access. It's not where we have the data. The data is delivered on the platforms used by the researchers, and it's especially 3 platforms in Norway that the universities in Norway are running, and it's used by different research fields. So we've delivered the data on external platforms used for especially medical research, and they can connect the data on that platform. So the health data is more like the portal for investigating what's in our data sources.
Thank you again. And now I think I have a question for all 3 of yours. Do you see any AI or robotic processes, automation tools? If yes, for what? Are they in-house built or off the shelf? So can we start with you, Leslie, and then Dr. Hamad, and then Bjørn? Yes or no? Leslie?
Yes. What I'll say is that the federal government of Canada is using a lot of Microsoft AI tools. That is their official platform is Copilot that they're using. At the same time, we have chosen at Libraries and Archives Canada not to limit our use to the official endorsed software. And so we are experimenting with a number of different AI tools, and it really is experimentation. So we're encouraging members of our team to play around with different tools, and then present to colleagues and share experience, so we can look at identifying the tools that would be most relevant for us to use in the different parts of our organization. And I'll pass things over to Hamad. Maybe he'd like to jump in now.
Thank you, Leslie. Yeah, so we also have a strategy here in the UAE, and we have a ministry, and we have a minister, like dedicated minister for AI and robotics. So we need, as an organization, we need to be aligned with the national strategy, and we need to provide also evidence and proofs that we are also implementing AI. So the answer is yes, but it's different on also different levels. There are also like simple implementation of AI and robotics, such as OCR integrated with machine learning and auto-indexing. But our expectation is much more beyond what's we have currently. So this is in short.
Perfect. And Bjørn, yes or no? I know the answer.
Yes, we are especially using a software coming from a small HI firm in Norway, where we do what we call concept search into the unstructured data, where we start with some words and then they give us some other words, and you kind of collaborate with the machine to find the needle in the haystack, the specific information. We do not use RPA. We have tested out something, but we haven't succeeded on that yet. But that's relevant for testing out in the future, definitely.
And thank you for the three all the three of you. And I have another question. Can you provide interesting information about how criminal cases and materials are digitized? That is maybe you, Leslie? No. Hamad?
Sorry, it's just I couldn't unmute.
Yeah, perfect.
Sorry.
I think you can answer this, maybe.
Well, I'll just say that we do have digitized criminal records in Canada, but those often do fall under either solicitor-client privilege or under privacy. And so it's one thing to be able to provide information about historical cases. And we work in Canada, we have both a federal and provincial courts. And so we would be the record working with the federal courts, whereas the provincial and territorial archives would be working with the provincial courts.
Thank you. And this is a question for you, Hamad. What technologies do you use for digital records appraisal?
Yeah. Currently, at the moment, we are not doing, digital records appraisal. We are now in the process of investigating, and we are trying to test an AI tool. But the issue with that, it's an in-house developed system. It's not a ready-made system. But the issue with that is that you need to start this journey with the system. You need human interaction. You need to feed the system till you are sure that you can rely and you can depend on the result of the system, because the appraisal result is very important. We don't need to risk it. So we are now just investigating how to interact with the tool to be able to reach to a result, the best result that we can have in terms of digital records appraisal.
Perfect. Thank you very much. And now I have the last question for all of you. There are often many governments that have national level AI strategies. How do you think cultural memory institutions can try to remain relevant in the minds of these larger tech-centered bureaucracies? Who want to start? Maybe you can. Yeah, you can. Perfect.
I can comment on that. Of course, we are a huge data provider in the public sector of Norway, and that's our communication across the sectors and within the government, is that we are a huge data provider and should be central in this. And I think we get the message out there. Don't you think, Inga?
Yes, I think that. I think we are very relevant now, more than ever, because our data are accessible. Leslie, do you have any comments on this?
I would just add that quite often governments are looking for pilots and test cases. And because we hold such large amounts of data, we're often a go-to in terms of them trying to demonstrate the power of AI. And also we can bring that whole side of the ethics and the social impact of AI and its tools to that government debate and discussion, which I think is very important.
agree with you, Leslie. And you, Hamad, do you have any things you want to say regarding this?
In general, I would say that, selecting technologies might be different between an organization to the other, but understanding the needs and identifying the real requirement for the organization will really help to make any implementation smooth from the start, which is identifying the business requirement, translating business requirement into technical requirement, and then, I believe that this would really result into having a successful implementation of any system or any utilization of the technology, because we will be able to measure the return on investment in terms of, financial resources, human resources, and any other resources. So it will help us to expect the objective of having those technologies, preventing any issues and threat, and also ensuring the long-term preservation of the content and the responsibility that we have as National Archives.
Perfect, thank you. I have studied the chat box and all the questions have been answered now, but there are some remarks in the chat box, so you can take a look if you want. Now I'm going to the closing remarks, and I can offer the speakers time to make a final remark of 1 minute or 2 minutes, if you want, before I close this event. So do you want to say something as in the closing ceremony? Hamad?
I would say happy International Week of Archives, and thank you to everyone participated in the, organizing the session, attending the session, participating in the comments. And I guess by this type of events and discussion, we will, I think, take this industry to the next level. Thank you so much.
That was really, really a good remark, Dr. Hamad. Leslie, do you want to say something?
Well, I'd like to thank FAN for hosting this, the Forum of National Archivists, and it is great to be together to celebrate International Archives Week. And I think this is one in a series of conversations where we'll come together on these key issues for archives. And we look forward to the session that's coming up in Barcelona at the ICA conference.
Very well said, Leslie. And Bjørn, do you have something in your heart that you want to share with us?
I think this is a great opportunity to make contact. So please contact me if you want more information, and maybe we can collaborate on, for example, patient records in the future.
Perfect. And then I want to say thank you so much to the speakers. Thank you, Dr. Hamad Mutairi, Leslie Weir, and Bjørn Børresen for your presentations and your comments. And thank you, ICA, International Council on Archives, and the ICA's Forum of National Archivists, FAN, and the interpreter for organizing this very professional event. And thank you so much to all the participants online at this last webinar, closing this International Archives Week 2025. And I think that we all can agree that this week has contributed to make archives more accessible. Archives are accessible, archives for everyone. And I really hope to see you all in Barcelona in this autumn. So thank you very much.